Hello and welcome to today's camera review. Today I'm going to be showing you the Zeiss Icon, and in particular it's going to be the model Nettar. It is a 6:9 medium format film camera. On the back side we can see we have a little window which allows us to judge our framing, and then the camera comes with a handle that is not really helpful. Down below we have a little window which allows us to monitor the frame counter. So every medium format camera has its own position where we can monitor the frame counter depending on the format we are using. So this is down below because it's 6:9. So let's close this down and have a look at the top side of the camera. On the top left we have this wheel which allows us to manually advance the film. And next to it we have the shutter release, which you would expect on the right side, but on this camera it's on the left. Where the shutter button usually is, we can open up the camera, the bellows and the lens extend, and they are on a fixed position. If you want to close the camera again, you have to manually push here and on the lower side, and then you can close up the camera to its really handy form factor. But let's open it up so I can show you a little bit more. The camera only comes with a cold tube but has a PC sync port, which is a feature of the lens. I will be showing it in a bit. So on the bottom side we have these little buttons which hold the film spools. I will demonstrate this when we get into loading film. And on the bottom side we also have a screw mount to mount the camera on a tripod. And as you can see on this plate we also have a screw mount which allows us to mount the camera in horizontal position. What you will also find is this spacer, and when you drag it out you can basically put the camera on a flat surface and have it stand there in case you do not have a tripod. But obviously a tripod will always be better. But for now I will be using it so we can have the camera stand up here, and I can show you a little bit more of the camera and lens operation, and in particular what the features of the lens are. Let me quickly zoom in so we can have a better view on the lens. On the left side we have a PC sync port which allows us to connect a flash system or a wireless trigger. And on the far right we have a screw mount which allows us to connect an external cable release. As this is a leaf shutter lens, you can expect all the operation to be in the lens itself and all manual. On the bottom side of the lens we have this lever which allows us to adjust the lens's aperture. We can open it up to 6.3. If we turn the lever any further it's not going to open up anymore. And then you notice we can put it to the red dot between aperture 11 and aperture 16, which is supposed to be the sharpest point of the lens. And then we can close it down all the way to aperture 32. Above the aperture numbers you see the shutter speed indications, and there is a ring to adjust the shutter speeds, and it has a slight notch which allows us to see which shutter speeds we're at. And it's starting off from bulb modus. So if I put it into bulb modus, cock the shutter and hit the shutter button, hold it, you see how the lens is opening, and if I release the shutter it's closing down again. And then we can of course start setting it up from 1/25 of a second, and then we have a setting for 1/75. From my experience we can also set it somewhere between 1/75 to 1/200. So we have a setting that is somewhere in between, but it's not really accurate. So, and now I'm showing you the lens, how you can cut the shutter, and then you push the shutter release button and it releases the shutter. And it's all connected down below from this lever which is connected to the shutter, and they are all acting at the same time. Looking at the front of the lens, the front ring is to adjust the focus of the lens, and we have a middle indicator. Just let me turn the camera. It's going all the way from minimum distance, which is 2 meters, over to 5, 3, 4, and so on, all the way until infinity. And on the front side of the ring we see the numbers which indicate how big our depth of field is. Then of course we have this little window to look through, which is a rangefinder, so we don't actually see what we're focusing at. And therefore it is important for us to know what our focus distance is and how the depth of field is going to be for us to take an appropriate shot. As we have talked over operating the camera, let's close this down and actually load it in some film. You can open up the camera underneath this handle, pull this up and open up the camera. You can see by the dimensions of the camera that this is a medium format film and it's actually taking 6 by 9 centimeter large negatives. And you will end up with 8 frames on a roll of 120 film. On the left side you have this window which allows us to see the frame counter on the back of the negatives. At the moment I have 2 empty spools in there, so let's take them out. You simply push them down. They are held in place by a spring mechanism on the bottom side of the camera body. And let's take this one out, and you basically put them in as you take them out. What's different with this camera, the empty spool goes on the left side of the camera because above that there is the turning wheel which allows us to advance the film. And therefore the new film spool goes on the right of the camera. So let's open up some film and actually load it up. I have some former Pan 100 black and white film, which I am going to load into the camera. We break the seal, roll it up, and as we did with the empty spools, we simply put the new film spool into the right side of the camera. And just for comparison, I want to show you how to load up a film into a film holder for a medium format bag, to which the film would go on the left side and is rolled inversely, so the black paper bag goes towards the front side and towards the camera. And for this camera, the spool goes onto the right side and the black paper side goes towards the front of the camera. So when the slider is taken out, the film will be exposed by the light coming through the lens. The film then is dragged over into the spool, and I am going to speed up this process, and you will see that it's actually not that easy because there is not much holding the film. So you have to take care of holding your paper in place while you turn the film advance wheel. Once the paper is catching in, you're ready to advance the film and tighten everything up. If you have been used to using medium format film cameras, you are well aware of the indication arrow, to which you would advance the arrow on the film bag. On this camera though, we advance the film and we don't have an indicator. All we do is look through this window and turn and turn and turn until we will see an indication. So an arrow is what shows up first, then some lines, and we turn, and then these dots are getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and we turn until we see the frame counter 1. Then we can close the door and the camera is basically ready to get shooting. As the shutter is not cocked, we cannot accidentally take a frame. All we need to do then is open up the camera, cock the shutter, and then we are ready to shoot and advance the film to take the next frames. And this was the camera review of the Zeiss Icon Nettar medium format camera. If you liked this video, I would really appreciate if you would subscribe to our channel. And for more camera and gear reviews, head over to our blog allgearedup.com. Again, thank you for watching and see you next time.